record. Perfect. Just to talk about a little bit about our right hand and our left hand, mainly our left hand, and scoring and kind of how that impacts us, right? Because it's just so important, right? And to get them to score right. And I don't know, I have found not only has it gotten to the point where like you have to get them to score right, then you have to trust them on top of everything, which I think is just as hard. So it's just kind of open for discussion how these work. There's no real game plan. We can talk about tips and tricks and ideas or where you guys are at. And we can go from there. I just broke my pen.
Yeah, so actually I've been working on my left hand quite a bit with I have a younger horse, so I've been working a little bit on getting him to actually rate off of my hand coming out of the box versus him relying on my feet. And I'd say the last like 2 weeks or so, he's been getting a little impatient in the box and wanting to almost go to the right and like put his ribs out and put his shoulders in. Yeah. And almost wants to go sideways coming out. So I've had to actually use my left hand a little bit to keep him straighter and then like kicking his ribs in.
Does he want to bow out towards the right or bow towards the cattle?
He wants his hip to go out away from the cow when he's instead of like keeping together underneath of himself, he wants his, like if the cow's here, he wants to go like this coming out of the box versus staying straight, gathering up and being patient.
And what have you been doing for that, or how is that?
So the first night, I was kind of surprised that he was doing it. So then the second night I tried to get him to take a step, and then I would nod and try to get him to be a little bit more forward, and gather up. I did that for a couple nights. And then last night I ended up, because it was getting a little bit better, but if I didn't take that first step with him, he still wanted to do it. And so we were running the dummy, and I roped a few good calves. So I was like, okay, I ended up taking both hands, pulling his nose out to where he couldn't turn his head towards the cow, and had to force him to like keep his shoulders and his body a little bit straighter. It definitely made him want to stall up a little bit, but I think it helped a little bit. It didn't help as much as I would have liked though.
Right.
It's kind of a new thing that he's started to do, and I don't know if it's just as he's progressing with being a faster cattle or what.
Right. And I mean, I always feel like the good horses go through a phase, right, where all of a sudden they get a little jacked up, or they're anticipating wanting to go, which is awesome, right? But then you have to slow them back down.
Yeah, and he's never been like a hot horse in the box. That's something I've always really emphasized with him. So it's definitely weird seeing the progressions now, like as you step them up, then they want to kind of step up or squirm in different ways.
What does he do if you were to walk score him the whole way out? So like, walk score and keep him in framed up the whole way till he gets to the pin, and then go after the cattle, or I would say the sled.
Mm-hmm. So bring him to the pin, and then let him really just chase down the calf, or chase down the dummy. Yeah, and you have to
do a slow cattle or the sled. And I do this I've done it a lot this summer. Not with my mare, but with the two bay horses I had, and I would keep them in right. Either work with a zigzaggy thing, or a hoppy thing. I'm sure that those have terms, but
So I rope over at Brett Hales, so that kind of gives you an idea of what the arena looks like. So it's pretty short, and then you have a couple turns that I could follow it around. So I could follow that out, and really I did that probably once last night, but it was more just because we were late. So I could probably do that and kind of program his muscles to do that.
Right. It only works with a sled is if your sled driver is slow when they come in front of in the chute. Because this summer I was doing it with somebody else driving the sled and they weren't paying attention, or they're like, "Oh, you're fine." I'm like, "Oh, you know," and I'm like, "You know how it is." They're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." And I'm thinking, well, not really, but let's try it, you know. And they come around fast, but you need them to come slow around there, and you can work on your horse, right?
Yeah.
And just making him do it and not letting him do that. And then I would just lope a lot of circles.
Yeah.
Outside of the arena, outside of the box.
Okay.
That's kind of my thought. And as we go along, you might get some more ideas.
Yeah.
I rope. I mean, not always, but for the most part, if my horses are in a solid bit, when I will score, rope the dummy on, hey, okay, I have a new dog, and he's right here, and he doesn't like that I'm not paying attention. So he thought he should bite my feet. Not bite, but chew on them.
I have one giving me a koala right now.
Right. You know, so I always have a second bit that I use on them. It's a broken bit of sorts, right? Because both of those, my horses now are in more solid bits. One's in a super solid bit, and the other one's in somewhat solid bit. But then I always put them in I'm a big rope chin strap gag, somewhat of a gag bit. Not gag, but it's set up as a gag. Neither of them are gags, but I have, you know, a floating port. And I do all of those things, right, to get that forward movement.
Yeah. So I threw on, my roping bit's a little bit stronger than what I normally ride in, just because I need a little bit more when I rope. And I do have, it's probably a 3 or 4 inch shank, and it just has a dog bone in the middle. It's just like a broken dog bone bit. And I ride him in that because he doesn't need more than that. So that's something that maybe on the dummy I could put on him. And I was kind of thinking to allow him to be able to push on something a little bit more or build confidence up that way.
Exactly.
I'd kind of tossed around that idea too.
Right, because you want him to push into you, and then you just need to make sure that you have that bend side to side so you can have the lateral flexion, right? Because if they are in frame, they can't swing their hips.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part. You know, we all think that when we go, that you drop it, right? And you don't drop it. You keep them in frame till you get to the cattle, right? In an ideal world. Hopefully not with a broke horse, or, you know, a finished horse per se, but I don't know. None of my horses are there yet. One day they will be. I don't think so, but it'll be a good thought.
It's a goal.
It's a goal, right? We're just drop and kick, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I feel like that's my biggest problem. Like just what you're saying right there, like the drop and kick. Like I feel like my mare has enough speed once we get going, but getting her to fire strong from the box, you know, getting her to really, really fire. I mean, like I feel like she goes straight, you know, but like getting her to just, fire at the drop of my hand. Like I don't feel like in there. I feel like there's, you know, too much delay, or we're inconsistent with that.
Right. Do you feel like she's going backwards, or is she just not going as fast as she could go?
So I don't know, like I feel like she has enough speed, and I say that because like when I've had hard running cattle, and you know they're going to be hard running cattle, she can catch them. You know, it's not like we get outrun. But I mean, you know, like. Really hard running cattle, you know what I mean? Like you're going to be down the side.
Yeah.
And everybody is. And then, but I feel like we get beat on those first few jumps because like there'll be girls that'll be done roping before I even get to the calf. It's right there. It's like those first few jumps. Like I can just, and sometimes she has it and sometimes there's that delay. And I don't know, like, you know, I think that's my biggest struggle, which probably has a lot more to do with having her in my hand more, like I don't know.
Right? Yeah. So that if that twitch goes. So then I guess, so this is always a good question everybody can ask. So I feel like there's two different ways people score. They either want them in your hand pushing against the bridle, right? Or the other person wants them standing flat-footed, kind of on a loose rein, right? Or just standing, not pushing into you, right? And
I would say, like, I feel like mine, like, she's, like, this sounds crazy, but, like, she's too calm in the box. Like, and, I mean, I can get her worked up and make her act like an idiot if I do some crazy stuff on her, but, I mean, and I don't know, so I practice by myself a lot with the remote shoot, and so if I don't have a pusher, there's always a delay, and I think that has something to do with it. Because when I go to the practice and I have somebody to push a calf for me, so she's going to really have to fire. It seems like we get more consistent on that, but like you're saying, like she's more flat-footed and kind of standing there and not pushing on my hand, and so it's like a drop of the hand, but it's also like she's waiting for my body to tell her. Bam.
yeah. I think that, so I have a clicker too, and I found that it's really good for the horses that want to anticipate, but they can get so, I don't want to say lazy, but they're just waiting for it to click. They know once it clicks, and then it's going to make this noise before they even have to think about going, right?
Right.
Which that is hard. Is she in your hand? Is she pushing you out of the box?
Oh, no. Yeah, maybe once we start, you know, I mean, like I said, it takes me, like I have to, I mean, if I kind of try to jazz her up or, you know, get after a spanker coming out of the box a few times or really kind of try to jazz her up, and then she might start pushing and then might actually, like, you know, push through my hand a time or two. That's rare. I feel like I have to work at that to get her to do that, you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and see, I guess this is something we can just talk about is how do you get them to push through your hand, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what I want to push through my hand, right? Because I need them to be the fact that, for two reasons. I want to push them through my hand, not pushing through my hand, but pushing into my hand so that, A, our scores are so short, right, for the most part. You only have to see like this if they're not, if you have to see this and then you have to wait for them to ask you if you're late. And then the other thing is you have to be able to pull across the line. Yeah. Say that again. You go, did I mute you? I'm sorry.
In the background.
That's right. I'm gonna mute somebody so I can hear better. Guys. And so I don't need to mute myself. Here we go.
Oh, that's better.
That better there. I will unmute you guys if you want when you want to talk, but that I could put somebody.
Freedom and glory.
There. Nope. Okay, I think that's better, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I will just go around, but no, there's somebody else now again.
Yeah.
Can you say all mute yourselves? We'll let Jody talk, and then I'll just kind of keep going around.
Oh yeah. So I guess, yeah. So if we're talking about, left hand. So initially, when the topic was brought up, I was just thinking, you just like got to make your left hand like, okay. So my first thought on the topic was, that were going to be discussed. Basically, your left hand going out to the left, like when you rope, and so you're pulling your horse to the left. And so,
yeah.
so that was my initial thought. And so, like, I guess, like, I really focus on making my left hand, you know, like point toward the cattle, and really, you know, driving all my energy, my left hand and my body and everything, like driving towards the position on the calf that I want to be. But one thing I did notice this summer was that I was making my horse go left when I stopped, because I was pushing into her with my right leg when I sit down. So, like, you know, I go to sit down, and instead of me sitting straight, I'm like sitting down like on my right side, almost like I'm going to step off, which I wasn't, but that's how I sit down on her, and I'm pushing her to the left. And so it wasn't a hand problem, but it was still, you know,
A body problem.
Yeah, a body problem. But then when you guys started talking here just a minute ago, and you were talking about, you know, getting out of the box, and thinking, well, yeah, I mean, like, I think that probably is my biggest problem right now with the horse that I have, is like, I feel like she's fast enough and she really wants to run to cattle, but I don't feel like, you know, she's pushing into my hand coming out. Like, I just don't feel like I don't consistently fire like I want to, you know.
Right.
So.
And then my question would be, what would she do if you, on a calf, you saw the calf out, and you didn't, and then you just took him over and like spanked her, not until though you went across the line, just once, and in that spot.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's pretty much what I've done with her to try to get her to speed up, you know. It's like that first jump out, you know, give her a little, you know, over and under, and it seems to work, but you know, it helps. I mean, she speeds up, but I don't feel like, I don't know, I don't feel like it necessarily translates into that
Competition run.
Yeah, not consistently anyway. And maybe that was something else I was thinking about, is maybe I need to wake her up a little more before I rope on her in competition. You know, like, maybe I spend, because I'm stuck in the baby mode and she's past the baby mode, you know, I'm still thinking, oh, she's a colt and she hasn't seen anything, you need to really chill out on her. And maybe I just camp on her too much at competition, instead of, maybe I need to wake her up a little, you know. I mean, maybe that's part of it, but I don't know. I'd be
Raise the bar, right? That's so hard. Got to raise that expectation, right? For when they're ready, and she'll tell you when she needs to back off, but she's kind of telling you that she's ready for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, probably so. You know, like, that's probably me that's stuck in the baby mode, not her.
Right. It's hard though, right?
Yeah. But so we're talking about, you know, using your left hand. I guess, you know, what do you guys do to get them in your hand, to get them firing off your hand? And is that the way you like to score?
Yeah, and so I went back to the fact that, like, for my mare, is that's why I went to backing and figure eights, backing up the hill, long trotting up the hill, anything to work on those muscles and her stomach muscles, right? So that she had the power. Because she tended to have run with her nose out. And then with her, I would always go to something, a lighter bit, to be able to have her push into it.
And I do that. I change bits depending on what I'm working on. So if I'm wanting to work on, we're getting out, we need to loosen up, you need to, you know, free up or whatever, then I put like an Argentine, or, you know, it's a broken mouth piece with a little shank on it. Versus if we're working on, you know, stopping or reading, then obviously I have something more solid. But
Right.
I like the idea of developing her more like in the back end of the stomach, and, you know, maybe that would help her. Maybe that, I mean,
and as my mare got sounder, you know, and you always got to say, okay, and this goes back to Crystal's horse, it makes me think it's his teeth, and I'm not sure why. But, you know, are their teeth fine? Are their hocks fine? When they don't fire, I always think it's the stifles, and I always think breakaway horses, it's their left stifle is always sore on a breakaway horse. I'm not sure why, but fairly consistent. So Yeah, that's you just gotta go back and check all of the basics before, and then once you check, right, once you clear off all of the basics, then you can say, okay, yeah, you need to do your job and go faster.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to go to, sorry, usually we don't have this many people on here, which is awesome. Kate, it's Katie. Hi, Katie.
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
Good, good. So what's been going on with your horses, or what's your thoughts on your left hand, or how does that impact your roping?
My left hand is is kind of tricky with my horse. My gelding, he's pretty hot in the box. I can't score a whole lot. If I move my left hand very much at all, he's just ready to go. So my issue when I rope off of my gelding is when I get in the box, I have to be ready no matter what, because as soon as I send my hand up to go, he's going, and I'm late myself. I'm just late.
Not with him.
Nope.
Mhm.
So if I don't practice enough outside of the box, by the time I get in the box, I better be ready, because I get yelled at a lot by Cliff because I'm too late. I'm always too late, because I mean, there are times that I'm not late, but he's just so fast. And
so you mean you're like, by late you mean you are like thrown back in your saddle late, or physically
Yes.
you're not close to the calf?
Yes, because he lunges forward so fast, and he's kind of tricky, because it kind of it throws you back,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to be forward at that same time, and my hand has to be forward at that same time. So by the time I get to the calf, he drops his head and I'm there. So it's kind of a crapshoot. I mean,
so what does
rope.
Cliff say? What has Cliff been telling you to try?
A lot.
He says just get forward is what he says.
Always get forward. He's like, you can't be on your pockets at all. You can't sit. You got to be. In my case, I have to be a little bit more forward than most, because my horse just goes so fast, and he stops on a dime. I mean, he's just a phenomenal stopper, but his head is a little bit elevated.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's already tracking for me. He's too damn smart. And so he's already tracking for me. So I'm just basically just sending him forward. And then when I get there, I throw my rope and pull. And I mean, it's just, the timing has to be so crucial.
Right. And I think so do you ever think about gripping with your knees before you nod?
Yeah. Yes. But the tricky thing about him is that if I'm monkeying around with my legs, he wants to pop up in the front.
Mm.
So he's kind of a turd.
And is this one of the ones you run barrels off of too?
Yeah, I retired him from barrels. No more.
It's just a rope horse. So yes, he needs to be a good rope horse now.
Yep. So that's my goal this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's done his due time in barrels.
Awesome. The thoughts that pop in my head are the fact that you need to get your body stronger so that you can stay with him. So then my question, so I don't know if you got to watch the video that we did on Monday night with Farley in the group. And she was talking about, and she posted a video of it in the group with a ring, and you don't a Pilates ring, but it's talking about strengthening the inside muscles of our hips, right, of our pelvis. And I just think that's going to be so important for you, so that you can have them fire so quickly, right? So you can have your relaxed legs, so he can sit, and then get them to fire, so that you can be with him, right?
Yeah. As long as I don't touch him with my legs, he's fine in the box. But as soon as I put any kind of leg pressure on, he's so used to that with me doing barrels for as long as I did on him, that he is just raring to go. He knows what his job is. He's just like it. He knows what it is.
So then I would challenge you to the fact of maybe not do leg pressure, but before you walk in the box, to set your core muscles and set your pelvic muscles, not like so that you're tight, so that you're, I think the whole idea is the fact of you want to, when horses are like that, and you don't want to change your bridle at all, obviously, right? You're all ready to go, and you walk in there. So before you even, so like you're in the line out there, and you got everything ready, and you set the muscles or make them tight so that they're already tight when they walk in, right? So it's not a change. And it's going to take him a while. It might be something I would play around with it when you're just warming up, right? I think we all can do that, right? In the fact of I'm walk, trot, lope with my core muscles tight, walk, trot, lope in that position. For your horse, it kind of gives them the idea of the fact that, it's okay. I can lope on loose rein when my person is up here, because I think that's important too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because they need to learn the fact that, okay, if you're forward in your saddle, it's go fast. If you're straight up in your saddle, it's maintain. And if you're back, it's flow, right?
Right.
And they got to be okay with what that is for you and your body, no matter what they think.
Yeah, that's the trick, especially when he's older and smart.
Right. Have you been getting to rope this winter?
A little bit, not very much. Yeah. Just basic. Earlier I did for sure, but not now. Not now.
Yeah.
How about you?
I was really good until I roped on Thursday last week, and I left Friday for circuit finals. And I should have roped on Sunday when I got home, but Hurley-Bird had a little bit of a snotty nose, and so I gave him some infection wipe out and stuff. And I'm like, because it was supposed to be that above freezing on Monday, and it hasn't been above 20 degrees since. So
yeah. Hey, congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great win. Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. So, so I haven't got to ropes, and I don't know. It's not looking promising. Maybe next week, right?
I'm hoping next week looks a little bit more, not as cold as it right now. It looks a little bit more warmer than what it is now.
Right. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe as we listen to more people, other people get some other ideas too.
Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to talk next? Is there how about Danny? Participants. This would have been easier if I would have done it on my computer, but unmute. There we go. Nope. You might have to unmute yourself, Danny. If you swipe all the way right.
What about now?
There you go. Yes.
Well, I don't have a whole lot to add, as it's been a long time since I've even got to even rope. So I'm just kind of working on my own comeback story this summer. So I'm using your group as motivation.
That's awesome. Well, glad that you joined us.
Thanks.
Okay. Let me see who's next on my list over here. How about Casey? It says Casey's iPhone.
Hello.
Hello. This is kind of like a play Who Is This game.
So what do you want to start with?
We were just kind of going through, do you have any questions or specific? We're just kind of talking about left hand, right? And I will kind of recap in the fact that when I originally did this like 2 weeks ago, I came up with this idea. It was all to be about scoring. And then the other day I watched the WCRA finals, not finals, whatever it was on Ride Pass. And then I got to seeing all those horses going left, right? Which is then why we are having the 21-day challenge to work on some of those things. So we were just kind of going through if you have any questions or thoughts, or how do you work on your left hand and scoring, or things you'd like to add?
Well, I am just getting back into roping after like a 10-year hiatus. So I have a young, I would say young, she's 7, not finished horse. So I'm just trying to kind of figure out and remember how to do everything. So
That's awesome.
this last fall, I was working on my whole family ropes and stuff. And so we were down practicing, and I wasn't like holding her in the box and then releasing her. So she didn't really know when to start. So that's kind of been something that I've been working on, is paying attention to, because I had always had an automatic horse that I didn't have to think about that. So thinking about how to cue her so that she does know when we are doing, okay, we're ready to go this time. And so that's been something I've been working on. Just roping the dummy and stuff. So.
Right. And it is such a process, and you have to remember that they change, right? It's so hard. The fact of you want them calm, and then I want to, and then like Jody said, well, now that I've got them so calm and now they're not firing, and it's just, I do think that's why it takes so long to season a breakaway horse. Because we're asking them to run to a calf and stop and not have to do anything. So I think it takes a lot it takes a lot of mental stability in a horse to be a breakaway horse.
Yeah.
So
and
I'm glad that you're back roping.
Yeah. So we're getting back into it anyway. So we'll see how it goes.
That's awesome. Okay. Crystal. How about Stacy? Hello.
Hi.
Do you have any thoughts? What do you on our left hand? What are I know you have lots of thoughts. What how do you work on your left hand, or how do you explain it to people about I guess my first question is do you like the horse to be pushing into your hand or standing flat in the box?
Combination of both. I would prefer to have contact, I guess, right? And then know that they're in my hand, but not necessarily pulling on me. Is that while standing flat-footed?
Right.
And the left hand is by far the hardest thing to explain and or even attempt to teach. Simply because everyone is so focused on the right in the rope.
And it's something you can't, to me, it's a feel, right?
Exactly. I was gonna say that's why it's so difficult to teach, right? Because it's a fine line between having contact and having a hold of your horse in the box. And a lot of times if you have a hold, right, then that's when box issues happen. And if your left hand is moving in the box constantly, their feet are constantly going to be moving. So as soon as you can convince somebody to stop moving their left hand and hold steady, whether that be the heel of your
heel, like this, right? I always like if this is your saddle horn. Do you have them do that sometimes? I don't know if you can see that. Oh, she's muted. Oh, good job, Jennifer. I muted her. Nope. It doesn't say. Oh. Are you back?
am
There
I?
you are. Here you are.
So
Do you ever have if this is your saddle horn, do you ever have them like put their hand on the saddle horn like that sometimes?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the hardest concepts, right, to explain. The more your hand moves, the more your hand is literally connected to their feet. So the more your hand moves, the more the feet are going to move.
Right. The bay horse I rode this summer, I mean, it was just if I did anything, he moved, right?
He was intense.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a hard and it's a hard concept for people to understand the fact that you have to hold it and that you have to, when you ask him to go, you have to keep it here and push your hand forward, right?
Yes.
When you ask him to go.
So that you continually have contact with their mouth
Mm-hmm.
or with their frame, as you would put it.
Right. That's hard. For the longest time, probably until like, I don't know, until this probably August, Maddie would, she would bow out before she goes, right?
Yeah.
And that's better. It's what's super interesting. What I learned this summer after riding the bay horse was the fact that my big sorrow horse is really broke, but he's really lazy at times. But if I am set and if I just go like this and drive him the pattern that I want him to do in the box with my left hand, he just does it, right? Which is so cool where Maddie does it, that she's different. But, and Arena was really different. You have to kind of do something different, but it's super nice when they are in the frame enough, right? And I think it was Katie was saying the fact that you're all ready before you go in and they have that same pattern, right? And I probably attribute him doing that same pattern, right? Where did he come from? And that's when Cliff roped off of him. It was always the same pattern. So if, as long as I am ready and do the same pattern, his anxiety that he had in the box has all went away, right?
Yes.
That's huge.
And the least amount of time you can spend in the corner is also going to, where you're ready, your loop is tucked before you start the process of going to the back of the box to turn around and back in, and making sure that sometimes too, scoring, when I have had a horse that's overly anxious, I will score as I'm facing up and mix it up, right? Score so that they don't always anticipate that. It just depends on the horse, right? I mean, each horse is so different, but there's a lot of different tricks to that as well.
And then I guess this is a big thing. And I know when I've ridden with Cliff, it was the fact that you put them in the back, when their butt touches the corner, it's either you do something. Yes. You don't make them stand in the corner
for very long.
Because
the longer you're in there, the more things that can go wrong, right?
Right. And it's okay to walk them forward 6 inches, and that's a safe spot, and that's the rest spot. But when people, and maybe Jody's horse, it makes me think of that, the fact that if it's the rest spot is with their butt touching the back of the box, we don't want that. The rest, I mean, we want it I don't know, it's a fine line, but it's the go spot, I guess, maybe. I don't know what to call it.
Yes.
So those people, and I don't know, like this weekend, somebody was in the box. I had to I asked them politely. Probably wasn't very polite to get them out of the box, but they're just hanging out in there. And I'm like, hey, it's not good for your horse. And you were just talking, right? The people, I think it's fine if you do that with your horse. I always do that. If I was going to do that, is with my horse's nose almost up to the pin, or in the relaxed zone, but you don't want them in that back corner.
Right.
But yes, as the relaxed zone. I guess for me, I think more of that for my big horse. Not really, but like Maddie, that doesn't, she's always on go, right? So that doesn't bother me, but where the Hurley, who's more relaxed, I don't want him to get so relaxed in that corner that when I take him somewhere, he's like, oh, there goes the calf,
Right.
Like
he fails to fire.
Right. Because he is, so I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I just think it's that those are just some things I see a lot of the time. So
Oh yes, for sure. I mean, that's the hard part, is the left hand does the majority of the work between, I mean, it's your steering wheel, it's your brake pedal, it's all of it, with the exception of throwing the loop.
right, yeah, more work happen. Yeah, it is the separating factor, I think. The better horsemanship skills you have, the better roper you will be by far.
Yeah.
That is so true. And having that
Right.
understanding.
Yeah, and I think each horse possesses new challenges too, as you upgrade or switch horses, or take on a project horse or whatever it is. You are always, it's always a process of learning, and like you said, I've done the same thing. I've gone and sought out individuals to ride with, and you can never quit learning that horsemanship part, so that when you get in the box, you've done all the basic work, the homework, I guess.
Right.
So that you can hopefully continue to focus on the process and get the result that you're looking for. And it's way easier said than explained, right? I mean,
no, but it is true, right? I went to that barrel clinic, and I was in grad school. So like in 1999, and Ed Wright at Rice's, and he kind of was like, realized I was a roper. So then he took my hand and kind of went through that process of left, right. And that's where I learned the first time, I'm sure not the first time, but the first time it finally registered, right? I'm sure I'd been told this information before many, many times, but I was like, oh, and he was, and started the process of learning that, and how to be able to have them collected in one hand is just, they have to be able to do that before you take them behind live cattle.
yes.
Or they're a wreck.
Well, and that's when I got this dun horse. The most recent thing is all he wanted to do is run. We did not have a lot of rate, and we still don't have a lot of rate, but we have more than we did. But we've spent a lot of time riding with people that have helped me figure out how to get him more collected and framed up, so that he is in a position to be able to rate off sooner, without necessary, and recognize it a little bit more on his own, versus my left hand having to work, because it fails at times.
It is just hard. It's very hard. And it's so different, because with Scribbles when I did that in that year in 2000, it made the biggest difference for him, and for him it was way different. And I learned that information, and then went through all these different horses, and then I get to the other horses, and you have to learn new information, and it's just constantly upgrading your left hand, I think is huge. I went somewhere, and everybody wonders why I lope. Everybody asks me if I'm a barrel racer, and I'm like, no, but my horse can lope a circle,
Right.
counter arc, and I don't do inside, but I counter arc her all the time, both of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lope circles and squares and figure eights. And
Have
I'm
you
sure
ever
it's
given
not-
any thought to left hand, right brain, right hand, left brain? So being that predominantly most people are right-handed, do you think that makes a difference? Versus,
I haven't given any thought of that, but I have given thought to the fact of people from a visual perspective, from the people that are left-handed, that rope right-handed.
mm-hmm.
I always want to. I always want to go up to them and say, "Hey, can we see which eye dominant, or what eye dominance are you, and how does that?"
Well, see, and I am left-handed, and
Right.
my left eye is my dominant eye.
Right, and I think that I think it plays a factor into that, right? And the fact of how that works, for sure.
Just interesting.
So it'd be interesting to know, because I know you've worked at it, but then I would do some vision some rock string stuff, right? And say, okay, if we do this and this and this, what is your depth perception like? Kind of makes you want to. I'll bring the rock string. I just took it off the fridge so that the new dog wouldn't eat it. So, but I haven't thought about the fact of, but our motor cortex is across both sides. So
Correct.
I don't necessarily know. It just depends how good your vestibular system, bottom line is. Because our vestibular system, our balance system drives our bilateral coordination.
Correct.
So, and drives our vision. So
Is it easier for you to rope out of the header box or the heeler box
Me?
if you're left-handed?
Well, okay, so this is ever since I was a little kid, the only thing that I've been ever allowed to do with my left hand is eat, write, and play basketball. So literally everything else, my dad was adamant that I do with my right hand. So I don't know any different from the get-go. So all of my behaviors are learned behaviors that have just like I was right-handed. So it's natural for me to head out of the head box, and it's natural for me to breakaway out of the breakaway box. I would say the breakaway box is probably more natural simply because I grew up on a hazing horse.
Right.
So I might not be a very good example of someone that's left-handed that ropes right-handed in that essence.
But you're an example of if you are left eye dominant, left hand dominant,
Yes.
of what you have to do if you want to rope right-handed, right? You have to do the work. Yeah, because if you don't do that work to create those new pathways, I mean, all the pathways can be created. It just takes a lot of work.
Correct.
Yeah, for sure.
That really went off topic of left hand, but
Oh, I think it's all connected, right? Because I think it's all connected. Because our people, a lot of our, it goes back to the fact of what Farley was saying on whatever night she was there, the fact that step one, if you're just returning to roping, is you need to be able to do something with your left and right hand. And then I want to say somebody posted the fact of she's a hairdresser and, you know, that whole post. I think that's huge, right? If
absolutely.
you got to work on that all the time.
For sure. Yeah. And I, you know, being that it's primarily a right-handed world, you have to learn to adapt. At least in, you know, for me, I've had to learn to adapt and do many things with my right hand versus my left hand.
Right.
So.
And I do things like, you know, when I drive, I make sure my left hand is in midline and center, and then I'll do things with my right hand, right? I'll do some exercises or whatever it may be, right? You're just constantly working on that piece of it.
So as a right-handed roper, I'm a right-handed person. Are you right eye dominant?
Yes, very much so. Like super right eye dominant. Like especially since my concussion, and I had to work on it a year ago. I worked on it and went very specifically targeted. I was suppressing all the visual information from my left eye.
Oh, wow.
After my concussion. And
so that makes a huge difference.
Right. So that depth perception wasn't there. Yeah. So that's why I did the Brock string. I worked on all these actual vision exercises. And I think what it was is the fact that I kept going to the eye doctor and saying I can't see, and they kept upping my script. And I finally went to an actual really good eye doctor, the one I sent all the kids to, and she played professional soccer, and she gets it, right. And she lowered my prescription, and then made my left eye work harder, right. and I worked on it so that my depth perception is better. It's still not great, but I mean, and it's all the funky little depth perception games I can't do. I mean, I wasn't able to do. So,
Well, I would love to talk to you about those.
right?
Yeah.
I have a whole packet. If I can find
Perfect.
it in the mess of what is my house.
Outstanding. And maybe make a few copies.
Yeah, it's a lot of red, blue, red, green stuff. So you put it in one color, and then you do overlays on top of it so that you're making your eyes wear red, green glasses and stuff. All stuff I did with my kids, and then finally I said, oh, I can't see what the kids are doing here. Maybe I should figure out what's going on here.
Yeah.
So,
But
the kids
it
be
all
like,
it all ties in though, right? Between your rope being accurate and your left hand and knowing where your so-called sweet spot is for that depth perception where you like to throw.
right? And since I did that, I was able to get a more consistent spot.
Yes.
Because I don't think I was riding her to the same spot, right? And so she was always giving me different looks, which then wasn't good. And not good for her because she just wants to anticipate so it was huge. Anyway, I think we're getting about to the end of our hour here. I know we didn't get to everybody. You can type it. Whoops. If you have a quick question, you can type it in the chat. If not, I will share this on YouTube, or if you have any other questions, we can post them in the group and keep talking about this, because I just think it's fascinating, right? And then my next question is the fact of what I talked about the other day, is the fact of the calf running and the horses that aren't tracking the cattle. So, I mean, that's like all the pieces that go into that. So anyway, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.